everyone, and welcome to this Q&A for TOPOWA Never Give Up, which is currently playing at Raindance this year and has been nominated for Best Music Documentary as well. I'm so excited to be joined by the directors Philip Sampson and Inigo Gilmore. Inigo is currently in Portland in America, and it's 2 o'clock in the morning. So Inigo, thank you very much for staying up to do this with me.
Thank you. I was going to keep my eyes propped open.
Yeah, well, welcome to both of you. I mean, first of all, congratulations on your selection into the festival, and especially your nomination for Best Music Documentary. Philip, this is your second consecutive nomination for a film at Raindance, so congratulations. Yeah, how do you both feel about that?
I mean, it's always amazing to be nominated for anything, I think. And when you're making films like this, it's always the story first. And I think Inigo, highlighted such an incredible opportunity here to get out to Africa and Uganda. And for me, it was like a no-brainer, really, to get involved with another film that could be something that would find an audience. And Raindance have been so supportive to me. I think for us to have that as a premiere at Raindance this year, after last year being nominated again, is amazing, really. Very, very happy to get the film out to an audience and find a voice for it. So I hope people can enjoy it and really engage with the subject.
No, I think
it's very exciting for both Phil and I to be nominated for Raindance. I mean, one of the things that, so I'd met Phil and I'd come across this story of Brass for Africa through some friends, and had met the directors. And I know Uganda myself. I lived in Africa for 6 years when I was a younger man, and I've been in Uganda several times and just thought it sounded an extraordinary story. I mean, it is a story about, about music in a way, but it's very much the human stories within that, and the kind of rising to the challenge of both being a musician, and in this case with this film, this incredible journey to the UK to play with Wynton Marsalis, but also for 4 of the young musicians to have an opportunity of a lifetime to get into the British Army Corps of Music. And so when I discussed this with Phil, he was straight away incredibly enthusiastic, and that was really gratifying, for me. And we said, let's direct this together, let's make this film, and here we are, a few months later, with a wonderful nomination at Raindance. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot to be said about the whole journey that we went on, isn't there, Phil?
Yeah, so it is. I mean, I think for a UK premiere, this story is perfect fit for Raindance. So in that respect, I don't think it could have worked out better to have the kind of time that we had finally in lockdown. We were lucky that we shot the film last year, and that whole story actually happened to the point where, we had a good chunk of time to edit it whilst really the world wasn't doing very much. So I think, it's panned out actually quite well for us to have this as a launch pad for both the story and for us. And of course, yeah, I think when I heard about, we'd had actually a really, really good year at my company, and we were looking for a project really to do that had, a really positive angle to it. We wanted to do something where we use our voices as filmmakers really to highlight those stories that maybe don't get heard, that maybe fall underneath the radar. And Inigo, as a journalist, obviously has his ear very close to the ground. And I thought, what an amazing opportunity. And it was all a question of how are we going to make this happen? Yeah. And I think we took a flight. We took my brother Inigo, and we got straight in there and did a recce to Africa. I'd never been before.
I know it was a kind of baptism of fire for you guys.
Well, it was I wanted to go, but I wanted to go there and do something of use. I didn't just want to go on holiday. So for me, it was just the perfect timing, because we'd had a bumper year and we wanted to do something charitable. Whilst developing other projects that we've got in the background, just seemed to sit perfectly for Fix's next film. And out we went, and as soon as you spent 10 minutes with the guys in the slums, seeing what they're doing firsthand and meeting some of the wonderful people and the amazing welcome that we got, didn't we? I mean, these young musicians are just so inspiring. Spend 10 minutes with them and you're like, okay, yeah, we've got to make this happen. So when's the tour? 3 weeks time. Oh,
yeah.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So really no time to work out how we're going to fund this, how we're going to, write the narrative of it. It was really just get the cameras on the back, jump on the plane, get out
Yeah.
and start filming. And I think that's testament to the charity too, to Jim and Rhea and Andrew, who really opened their arms and trusted us as filmmakers, both Inigo and myself, to tell their story, because it's not a hard, it's not an easy thing to really let, you know, two filmmakers in and have that responsibility of finding that balance between a story that's so important personally to these people, but also so important to, you know, to the young musicians, and representing them the right way. So hopefully we've found that line, and we've trodden it quite carefully, but also wanting to make a film that's not, you know, not a negative in any way. This is such a positive story, and often you see with documentary work, it's so easy to focus in on the very harsh negatives and make something that's worthy and gives it gravitas in that way. But we really wanted to do the flip side, I think, this time, Inigo, didn't we? And shine a light on something that was so positive, obviously coming from extreme hardships, but the work that they do and the attitude that they do have, for me, was just like, you know, how do I support my voice to theirs? And hopefully,
I think Phil was quite blown away, actually, if I may say so, like what you found. I mean, I was obviously expecting, so to a certain extent, because I haven't been there before, but also, you know, but I think we're both pretty overwhelmed by what we found in terms of just the incredible spirit and determination of all these young musicians, you know, whether it's Samaya, who's literally an 18-year-old tuba player, and Julius, who's kind of one of, obviously, our lead sort of character, and, you know, and just all the whole setup, just kind of give these guys the framework in which they can develop as musicians, was kind of quite exceptional. But as Phil said, we had to literally go straight into production, pretty much.
Yeah, I'm interested in how you guys, you know, well, firstly, you know, I actually traveled to Uganda last year, and so for me it was really incredible to see this film and to see this kind of, you know, this other side of the country in a way that I hadn't seen when I'd be there. And I think it's an amazing portrayal of the kind of, you know, group of people and incredible work that they're doing over there. I'm interested in, you know, what you both touched on then, and I'm not sure whether it's Inigo or Philip really, but, you know, when you went out there, when did you first start to kind of think this was a film, really, and this was a story for film?
Maybe I'll pick up first, if I may. I mean, obviously we knew about the charity, but what was the kind of game changer really was, I'd actually already planned to go out before Phil came on board, and I wasn't able to. And then we got word that first of all, they're going to come on this tour, and that secondly, they're going to be playing with Winter Marsalis. And I was like, wow, that's extraordinary. And, you know, with the great jazz legend. And once we knew that, we knew we had a story, because, you know, many great films are done through a journey. It gives you that kind of natural arc, doesn't it? And also this kind of climax of playing with Winter Marsalis. And we knew, once we knew that was on board, and we knew pretty much that he would cooperate with us and be part of that, then we knew we had a potentially incredible film. Plus the army auditions that for the young musicians were going to go through the British Army obviously added to that. But
all of these different arcs,
that was a kind of clincher, wasn't it, Phil? Wouldn't you say, with the Winter Marsalis side, really?
I mean, there's so many elements to this film. To be honest, it was quite a tough one, actually, to identify what the clear thread was going to be. I mean, Inigo had done some great work already before I did come on board, because, you know, there's these backstories of the guys, the musicians themselves. There's a film in notes. I mean, the things these guys have been through are quite harrowing. Even from a small age, looking after their siblings, and, you know, even to get from being a street kid to getting your hands on a trumpet and learning an instrument in a slum is a remarkable story in itself. To go to the UK, to play an audition for the army, and then to get on stage with your hero and rip out an amazing trombone solo. I mean,
it's a really moving moment. That moment is.
So many of these things may not have happened along the way, and knowing what was going to happen was almost impossible, because it's an odd doc. I mean, we were shooting it as it's unfolding. It wasn't like we had a narrative planned out and we could roughly know, because we knew it was going to lead towards this big climax, like Inigo was saying, that you're going to play with Winton. But actually, that wasn't totally a done deal either, if I'm perfectly honest. We got there, and Winton, Winton was, down to play with the charity, and that was all happening. But even he's such a big name in the industry, it's so hard to get an interview with him. And he really did support to the end, and he gave us those 15-20 minutes at the end, which made all the difference, because I think without that kind of synergy between Winton and Julius, then there really would have been struggle. But we nailed that, and I think Samaya, if I point out Samaya, the moment that we went to film the recce, we went out to the recce, and I'm still unsure, like, how is this going to pan out? How does this piece together? We needed to go there, we needed to speak to people, and we needed to identify whose stories were going to be the most prevalent ones to find. Because there's 12 musicians coming. We can't highlight the story of all of them, although they're all equally worthy. So we had to kind of get to know people fairly quickly and see which threads that we'd have to kind of throw cameras on and follow more significantly throughout the film. But we just met Samaya, and she just lit the screen up. She's just an absolute superstar, along with Julius, Tadeo, Gilbert, and Ivan. I mean, and everybody in the band. But Samaya, we were filming Samaya, weren't we? We were in this little courtyard, and she's just like, "Girl power," TOPOWA. We're like, well, "Hang on, what's TOPOWA mean?" And she's like, "Oh, TOPOWA, that means never give up in Ugandan." And we were like, "Okay, we've got a film now. That's our story. That's our." And she just spelled it out for us in one word. And when that kind of happens, then it's kind of a magic moment. And you're like, okay, well, now we know where we're going with it.
Could maybe Philip, I'd be really interested. Obviously, you mentioned Julius, Samaya, these amazing and very infectious personalities that I think really speak through the film. Could you just elaborate a little bit on, how did you find these characters, and how did you decide on who to really focus in on during the filming? Was it that moment where she said that meant, that was the...
Let me jump in first, because basically I knew about some of the musicians from the charity director, and then when I discussed with Phil about making the film, we kind of knew that ones from the charity who were the real sort of rising, the big talents. Do you know what I mean? But obviously we didn't know what they were like as characters, and so we knew we wanted to focus in on Julius, who becomes the kind of big character in the film. But Samaya we knew about, but we hadn't actually met her. But as the only one of two female musicians in the group, that was obviously very critical. But then I think once we got on the ground, Phil, you just make that connection with them, didn't we?
Yeah, I mean, I was shooting the whole thing as well. So like, when you throw a camera lens up on somebody and you put that in their faces, these guys have never been filmed really anything other than an iPhone between each other. So and these are
Android.
Kids that also grew up with a huge lack of confidence because of places that they've been put into, and even opening up and speaking, it's about their stories is quite a tough thing for them to do. So it's also being aware when you're filming people, like who can really handle that and who can give that, and obviously some other big characters come straight forward. I mean, Gilbert went on this incredible journey. He was there for 7 years, and he just grows in this voice throughout the film. So identifying these characters, they did kind of leap forward towards us.
We knew about Tadeo, who as a young baby lost his limbs in a terrible fire, and is an inspiration in himself. I mean, there are just the fact that he could even play the trombone and achieve such a high level is kind of beautiful and inspiring and incredibly moving.
They're also supporting each other as well, aren't they? That none of them were like, well, if I'm not the focus, then I'm going to be annoyed.
Yes.
It's like they all are such a close-knit team of people that they just really support each other. And I think, we could have put the camera on any one of them, but just, for a film, we were at 90 minutes, we were at an hour 20, 2 hours of the first cut. I mean, even just leaving things out was so difficult.
I mean, obviously the core of the band all knew each other growing up, and some lived in the orphanage, and some went to the orphanage which is near them in in their area to play music. And in a way, that bond that they created as young children, when they were first learning how to play brass, is really critical in that kind of interaction, and that, as Phil mentioned, that beautiful kind of support for each other. And so even Samaya, who obviously wasn't in the orphanage because she's with her parents and she has her family, she used to hear them playing nearby, and then got to know them as a younger kid as well. So these guys have known each other in the same area, in this same slum area for you know, a lot of their lives. And so there's something very beautiful about the way they play together as well, because you can just feel the kind of love and care for each other in the music and in the way they interact with each other.
I mean,
you do feel like they, oh no, I was going to say that you're speaking about the love that they have when they play. You did feel like they really kind of shook up the Cheltenham Music Festival in the way that they played and the enthusiasm that they had. I mean, that was really quite special to watch. I'd love to just speak a little bit about, or just hear a little about, you know, obviously the film was shot over 22 days, not a long period of time. And, you know, 8 of those days were taking place in Kampala in Uganda. And you mentioned, Phil, to me, it was your first time when you did the recce in Africa. And obviously you go to some very challenging locations in Uganda. You know, you're filming in the slums in Katwe, you're filming in Kampiringisa. You know, could you just speak a little bit about filming in Uganda, the challenges you maybe faced, the journey of that?
I mean, I think, you know, once we decided to do the project, it was apparent we needed to do this very lightweight, small crew, not invasive. You know, so I took, you know, a team of 4 from the UK. My brother Rupert's producing. We had Matt, Callum on the camera department, and then we hired some local fixing teams who were absolutely brilliant. So the support that we got when we got out there actually was incredible. We had 8 crew from Uganda on the job, local team. We had the support of Bosco and the Emdasad Orphanage alongside Brass for Africa, who literally made their facility our home. So going into some of these really incredibly tough places where, you know, maybe it is a hard place to film. It's even hard to watch and stand by while filming and let these things happen in front of you. But they know the local people so well that these slum villages aren't a place of complete, you know, lawlessness and diversity. There's some incredible community spirit there as well. So showing things off in the right way, I think people will also get behind you. Even when they're marching through the middle of Namawongo slum on the train tracks, you know, we have little kids just running behind them and joining in because it's such a joy to see. And, you know, it's hot, it's full of flies and mosquitoes. It's, you know, muddy because it's like a swamp down there. And, you know, doing steady camming along a train track at the best of times with a full crew is one thing, but when we're just on the fly winging it is another. Drone cameras, I mean, there's a lot of challenges to filming something like that, but also the colour of Uganda and the people, vibrancy, just give you a frame at every single opportunity. And whether it be a street corner or a fish sellers or, you know, wherever we went with our musicians, there was always amazing opportunities for filmmaking. And then, you know, I think it was the most difficult thing was just being on the whole time, because I wanted to do so much justice to this story that I literally didn't put that camera down for maybe, I mean, the whole time. And even when it was the end of the day and everyone else was going home, there were times when I was like, I'll just go out and do a little round with the truck downtown and get some cutaways of, I mean, at one point, I think I was filming out the roof of our van and I had the camera propped on the back, and a guy ran up the back of the van and tried to take the whole camera. I mean, at that point I was like, that was a bit reckless, to be honest. A little bit too far. We could have lost the whole film if I didn't have that camera anymore.
I think that really stands out. Oh, sorry.
You just want to go the extra mile, you know.
Yeah, I mean, we had such a short time on the ground, you know, to do everything, because we'd done one trip and we did some filming on that trip, and which did actually make some of it make the final cut. But obviously we had to concentrate the bulk of the filming to 6 days, which is extraordinary, you know, to tell these stories and to shoot everything that we shot. And Phil, you know, literally was, you know, shooting, I don't know, 15 hours some days.
Work out, for sure.
Yeah.
And but you know, that was the challenge that we unfortunately, that was the circumstance in which we were in, because we were there when they were leaving for the UK. So
I mean, sometimes it actually really helps consolidate what you're doing too, because you know you've got a set amount of time. You don't have a lot of resources. I mean, we self-funded the film. My company Fix with my brother. It's all paid for and on the profits of what we did last year. But the way we often work is just to have two cameras. One in the gimbal, and then the main unit red camera. Obviously, we had a drone as well, but you know, when you're shooting between those two cameras, you can capture things very quickly, and really, you know, with technology now on the gimbals and things like that, even in some of those trickier places, you can get some amazing results. Obviously, having, you know, Inigo's amazing journalistic caliber there to be on side whilst we're doing the interviews means I can focus on, you know, the little bit of lighting that we did have. Getting the frame to look as good as we can. It's also about elevating. It's not just an old stock in the kind of fly on the wall EV cam. This is a red camera with film lenses, and you know, carrying a bag of prime lens 35s through a swamp to try and get this looking as good as we could. So you know, we pushed it on every angle possible.
Well, I think that really shines through. I mean, from watching, I feel like there's a really beautiful intimacy to the film in terms of the interviews that you guys had and the characters you follow, but then also I guess when you're talking about some of the cutaways you're getting for it, you know, it feels like you're telling the wider story of Uganda and pointing to lots of the socio-economic issues and making references to that as well. And I think you balance that, both of you, really, really well in this. I thought that was fantastic. I obviously want to move stuff along, as we don't have enough time, sadly, to cover all of these different areas in as much detail as I'd like to. But, you know, music is obviously a massive part of this film, and the backdrop for so many of the scenes. Could we just elaborate and speak a little bit about the soundtrack of the film? You know, how did you capture the music in these rather challenging locations, and then I guess how did you select pieces and what to play when you come to editing it?
I mean, maybe if I could just start that, and then Inigo can polish it with a nice bit about what music is. We were filming with one mic, so
oh wow!
When we're capturing those live performances, it's a boom mic scenario with amazing local guy Andrew, who literally ran around behind us on every single location and absolutely smashed the recording. It's brilliant. But you know, the joy of brass music is not something I had first-hand knowledge of. You know, really. I mean, I'm a musician myself. I play the drums, and he's pretty good behind the mic, aren't you? And you go, we even got to jam ourselves at one of the local.
I trumpet myself.
Music is everywhere in Uganda, and you know, my last film with Blondie was a music documentary as well, and I come from music videos, and I think with this edit and this film, it helped to lay down the musical journey very much, and we were just blessed to have incredible songs to access, and also to be there when these performances were happening. The final performance, I put 5+ cameras on that, really, because you don't know what's going to happen. And Julius, you know, standing up. We wanted Winton to be there at the end, standing up. Just trying to get that connection between them was something that we really had to focus on. But also the film itself is almost scored by the band, you know, whether it be in rehearsal or whether it be, you know, them practicing, or whether, you know, it be a mock audition, or just the sound of music was always so prevalent everywhere we went at Brass for Africa. So it felt like the band themselves needed to kind of do the musical score, but obviously that can't always happen with a 90-minute, 80-minute film. So we were also very lucky with the partners that we've got to bring in on this project. You know, we've had great support from West One Music doing some of the library music. We've also had Bonnie Wild over at Skywalker Ranch doing the sound for us, and we had Paul Frith scoring some, you know, rather brilliant additional pieces of music. It's just bed in there with, you know, with what was already there. But you know, music has the power to change lives. It really does. It elevates how you feel. It elevates what you feel about your ambition in life and where you can go, and just that story, that positive attitude that you can get from learning an instrument, the discipline you can get from learning an instrument, the education you can get from learning an instrument. It's not just about picking up, you know, an instrument and knocking around for a bit. This is changing people's lives in Africa, not just Africa, everywhere. You know, when we meet the kids in the schools in the UK, the arts are so important to the way we feel. And I think a film that can support the arts and music in general by showing it through this journey of brass music and how having access to the instruments just changes people's attitude about themselves. I think that's really important, and I think that's what the film at the core of it's about, and the work that Brass for Africa are doing out in Uganda and across Africa is just, you know, something that really needed an extra support in terms of giving it a voice. So I can't express enough how much learning musical instrument when I was younger was something that really gives you confidence, and I really want other people to see that as well. I
think, you know, there is obviously in the UK we have some communities have a tradition of brass music. Some communities, for example, the mining communities, the old traditional mining communities, and there is a tradition of brass music in Africa, in Uganda and East Africa, and it was somewhat unusual for some people to see young musicians playing brass, because, you know, these days you don't want to be in a band or something, you know. And so, but there's something very beautiful and poignant about it, because that is, you know, they were able to get these instruments. The whole origins of the charity was that Jim Trott, this amazing British Airways pilot, managed to bring the instruments out to Africa, and that came from his son's school, and they were donated, and these kids literally took them up and started playing them. And Julius tells this story of how he hid his instrument when he got it, and, you know, he wanted to have it with him all times. And they're so passionate and so dedicated to learning their craft. There's something extraordinary about it. So it reaches even beyond the music itself, because it became for them a kind of discipline in their lives. It gave them a focus. You know, these are kids who are growing up in really, really difficult circumstances. Some were growing up in the orphanage. Some had, you know, broken homes. One of them, as you see in the film, was in a rehabilitation center, youth rehabilitation center, had been abandoned by his father. And somehow brass music gave them this focus in their lives. So it reaches beyond the beauty of the music, and which is fantastic. I mean, you know, and to really sort of a deep personal experience for all of them, learning these instruments and giving them something to achieve in life, and give them a goal to reach for. And as you see in the film, there's an amazing scene where they go marching, which is a tradition that they do. They march as a band through the slums, and they go along the railway track, and we follow them, and it's just, and everyone comes out and sort of cheering them on, and you know, dancing to the music, whatever it may be, and the kids are trailing them through the slums. And there's something absolutely extraordinary about that experience of seeing these players, and who are just loving the brass music that they're playing, you know. And it's some of the music is something maybe a bit unexpected to some of our ears, you know, traditional brass songs, but they mix it up with sort of, you know, jazz. They also mix it up with songs. Many of the songs were written for them. And as you see in the climax of the film, both in Ronnie Scott's and then in Cheltenham. And yeah, I mean, just the whole thing is an incredibly uplifting film, because you realize these young people have taken on this challenge to learn these instruments and achieved incredible things with it.
I mean, Alan Fernie needs to mention as well. He's an amazing composer that works with South Africa, and he went out to Uganda and was just inspired to write them these amazing songs. Kampala, which is the track that finishes the song and is also in the middle of the film as this kind of stepping off moment when they're about to get on the plane, is just the sounds and feel of that city. You really get that from them, and it really means something to them when they play it, because they've all, like Inigo said, grown up together, and that's the culmination of this incredible journey for them. And yeah, it's an amazing sound when you hear a full band on stage. I mean, there must have been 20 plus musicians playing that last piece, and I'd never heard a brass band that big, and it is an incredible sound. It's a hugely uplifting thing, and it's kind of the rock and roll. If you're a young musician in Uganda, you know, playing a brass band is cool. You know, that is for them.
But they do rock out to it. They really do, I have to say. I'm really interested, you know, now obviously the film's been nominated here at Raindance, it's been selected here, and I'm no doubt that, you know, you're going to go on to get more acclaim for this film as the journey continues. I'm interested, do the bands know it's been selected? Have they watched it? You know, how they feel? Are you still in touch with these guys now?
Well, yeah, I mean, without giving away any spoilers, you know, there is a connection still with these musicians, and I think, you know, they're all gunning behind it, supporting it on Facebook, supporting it on their channels of social media. I think they're all really excited to have it out there and have people take this journey with them. And, you know, they really have given 110% in the way that they committed to us being there and filming. I mean, there wasn't a moment they said no to an interview or anything. It was always like, you know, how can we help you, and how can we be part of this? And I think for them, it's kind of like, you know, it's that moment where it was all worth it to get it out to a festival like this. And I think if it can go on and see other things, and then we will share that with them, of course, wherever possible. We're going to try and get out and play the film out there, hopefully. But they can all log in. So we've opened this film up at Raindance to be both available in Uganda and the UK. So hopefully we'll be able to get them all to watch it and just to share and spread the love, really.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll be able to. I'd love to, you know, Philip, you mentioned it a minute ago. I think you talked about it as well from you kind of discovering the story as such. You were speaking earlier about how it's self-funded and you guys had a really small team. You know, what advice would you both have for any budding documentary filmmakers, any journalists who, you know, they've got a story, but they're not sure how to go about capturing it because, you know, filmmaking, it costs a lot of money. It's quite difficult, you know, all these different things. What would you say to those guys?
Don't do it. No.
Be careful. I think you've really got to 100% believe in the story you're making, because it will take over your life for a while, and it's got to be something that real. You know, I think you can practice filmmaking pretty much on anything these days. You can make a documentary about anything. You don't have to go to Africa to make a documentary. It just so happened that that's where this one took place, and you don't have to kind of spend a fortune to make documentaries in the way that we may have gone slightly big. But I think if the core story is what something you believe in, then that's what vindicates it. That's what the passion is. And if we can use I think I said at the beginning of this interview, if we can use our voices as filmmakers to highlight causes, that for me is what documentary really excites me to do. It's like, whose story hasn't been told, and how can we help that voice reach a wider audience? And that's a set of skills that you can practice and learn throughout your career. You know, when you're getting to talk to people, you're interested in people, or you know, what's available camera wise now. You know, look, some of this film we actually shot on mobile phones, you know, very good, you know, high grade mobiles, and you can give those to people and get that personal response. But it's all about getting out there and doing it. I think, you know, you can say you want to be a filmmaker, but it's not until you actually roll up sleeves and dive in the deep end and actually do it that you become one. So, you know, you're going to learn on every job, and you're going to find it incredibly challenging to begin with, but the tools are all there. You know, you can make films and make stories about anything. So
I think Phil and I discussed quite early on. We just said we're going to have to commit to this because we literally had to go into production, and I think we both believed very strongly from the outset that there was something very special here and potentially wonderful film. But so yeah, the advice really, as Phil says, you're going to be sure that you know, this is something you really want to do, because, you know, especially if you're funding it yourself and supporting it yourselves. But I think, you know, we always believed in this film from the beginning, and we knew it had great potential. And we were, but I think more than that, we were driven by telling the story of this charity and these young musicians, and we felt almost a kind of, you know, this was something we had to do, you know, to help the charity to get the word out about what incredible work they were doing. And so it was kind of it became a mission for us, really. So in a way, the financing side, I mean, obviously is important, but if you can somehow make it work, and you're telling a very important, powerful story, then I think that's, you know, go for it. But yeah, obviously be aware of what you're letting yourself in for. You know?
I think it's worth mentioning just, Jim Trott again at Brass for Africa, just letting us into his world really of what this charity is doing and has created this incredible education through music at Brass for Africa. And sitting down with Jim at the beginning and just talking about how we're going to do it and saying, look, we can bring the cameras and the team, but we're going to need you to be incredibly open and give us the access, because filmmaking is all about being there in the moment and having access, and all testament to Jim Trott really. I think he's let us tell this story, and hopefully we've done it in a way where everyone can really engage with it.
Brass for Africa really are transforming these young musicians' lives, and it goes far beyond the music, because the music is the focus, is the framework for their lives in many ways, but it's also a part of this kind of bringing together and education, and especially for these young musicians who had incredibly difficult lives, and they become part of this kind of Brass for Africa family. And I mean, what they've achieved in over 10 years is extraordinary. I mean, it really is extraordinary. The number of teachers that they've trained up, the number of young musicians that they have outreach programs in so many communities in the slums and Camp Rangisa, the Youth Rehabilitation Center. And what Brass for Africa and Jim has achieved is mind-blowing. It really is mind-blowing. And they're now branching out to other parts of Africa. And so it's really quite a unique and extraordinary setup that they have. And now, obviously, 4 of their musicians have managed to get into the British Army Band, Army Corps music. And I mean, extraordinary, really. They've really transformed young lives. What's that?
Spoiler alert. But
finally, I guess I'd love to hear, what message do you hope an audience will take away when they watch this film?
Can you go?
I think this says to particularly younger audience, you can achieve anything, in life, whether it's music or whatever it is that you're driven by, because what these young musicians have done is they've come from really, really tough situations. They've learnt their craft incredibly well, in this case, brass music. And as the title of the film says, TOPOWA, never give up. They never give up. They're facing these incredible challenges, even just, to get by in life. And they're committed to practicing day in, day out their music. Including not just the ones who did the auditions for the British Army Band and who are playing in Cheltenham, but all of them. And they've shown that by doing that, by focusing, by being dedicated, by having that real passion for brass music, and mastering these instruments, whether it's trombone or trumpet or whatever, they can achieve big things in life and they can reach their goals. And that's the message of the film, TOPOWA, never go up. Young people should never give up if they want to try and achieve something.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think even when everybody we spoke to kind of echoes just the feeling and the sensation of how inspiring this band of young musicians have been to meet, to play with. Even Winton, it's like he says, like wherever people are in the world, he wants them to be empowered, wants them to be rewarded for really trying, and when it's hard, you try harder, because nothing's easy, and it's not easy in England, it's not easy in Europe, it's not at the moment, the world, across the world. I think this message is more important, more relevant than ever. I mean, we're facing unprecedented times, and I think this film, if anything, can really kind of connect us to at the heart of what we're all doing and why we're doing it. It's not about having more, it's not about looking outside for some sense of worth. I mean, this is something that anyone can do to have a real feeling of connection to other people, to reach out to musicians, to reach out to your local community, to be part of something, to take part in something. and they do that in spades. And I think that the film innately is, you know, obviously supporting this great cause, but also it's embedding in all of us this kind of positive experience of, you know, by the end of the film, I'm gunning for those guys up there on the stage. And I think,
Yeah.
if there's anything you take away from the end of the film, you walk out of it hopefully with a real positive feeling that, you know, we can make a difference and we can change lives, and we can, if we want to, make the world a better place, you know, no matter where you come from. You know, I think, you know, to tell someone like Samaya says, no, to tell someone that she can play an instrument from where she's from is just, for her, an unbelievable thing. And I think that's right. I think you can do anything. Like Kenny says, if you really set your mind to it, you need a little help along the way, and that's what we're here to do. So I think it's just about making a positive message for change and a positive message for good, and I think that's what the film is all about.
I mean, Samaya, just on Samaya, we should probably just mention that we were told that she might be the only female B-flat tuba player in Africa. And she was only 18 when we met her. I mean, it's extraordinary to have achieved that and to have gone on tour and played in Cheltenham as a young female tuba player in Africa in itself is an extraordinary achievement. And Winter Marsalis recognized that in the band, that both Julia's and Samaya and all the others. And I remember he said to us, TOPOWA, which, you know, means never give up. TOPOWA, you better believe it. He said, you better believe it. These guys never gave up. They went for it, and you see in the film, the climax of the film, and on stage in Cheltenham with Winter Marsalis.
The film ends obviously with them achieving this amazing ambition, but the work that is happening and is still happening goes on. I think, you know, it's not the end of anything, but it's a beginning of another journey as well. I mean, it's the first time these musicians are going to perhaps separate and go their other ways, but they're always bringing through new teachers, new training, and the kids come from these slums, like literally they're born that way, and then they get to go back and they get to teach in their own communities. It's amazing that they give back, and that they tell you when they're working with you, you know, I want to go back and I want to take what I learned and I want to give back to my community, and I want to, you know, be part of that place that brought me up, but I want to raise it up. So I think that's such an amazing thing to hear when people want to take what they've learned and what they've seen and go back and really make a difference. So all credit to them, really. It's not our film, it really is their film, it's their story, and hope everyone can engage and watch and enjoy it, really.
Well, I think that is the perfect note to end on. You know, thank you so much, both of you, for doing this. It was really interesting talking to you both about this amazing film. The film, for those of you who haven't watched it, is available from the 28th of October for free at the website cinema.raindance.org. If people are moved by this film and the work of Brass for Africa, is there a place they can go to donate? Where would they go to do that, guys?
I think the first place to start will be their website, and that's brassforafrica.org. Obviously they have their social channels and pages where you can kind of access there, but it's a wonderful world when you start dipping in and hopefully getting to know some of these characters. I'm sure it will lead to,
and hopefully we're going to be seeing them on bigger stages playing in the future. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Absolutely, yeah.
But thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Yes.